Welcome everyone to part 2 of our security webinar series. Last week we had some exciting topics to cover, and I'm going to do a quick review of them right now. Frank doesn't know this, but I went through his presentation again and thought about all the good things that he was talking about, and I just summarized in my head some of the things that I got out of the presentation. First of all, we were talking about ensuring the productivity and security of your remote workforce during everything that's going on here. A lot of people going mobile, a lot of companies not really knowing how to go mobile. So how can we help with the efficiency of that, as well as, more importantly, the security of that? So Frank took us through a topic called unified endpoint management with some artificial intelligence. A couple of IBM products we went through and how that can help you deploy security and management around those remote devices and how to manage those more effectively. He also talked about the convergence of traditional client management with mobile device management. So we all have heard of MDM, mobile device management with mobile devices, but how do we manage our clients in a traditional sense when they were in the office, in the enterprise, et cetera, and converging that with all of the disciplines around that with mobile device management. So not only are we talking about in-office mobile devices, but we're talking about all devices now, and how do you bring that together, converge that together in one unified manner? That also includes the Internet of Things. So we talked a little bit about being able to manage anything IoT, anything that's connected to the Internet. So how do we go about managing that? We talked about the sexiest part of this, identity management, convenience and security. So we're all hampered by it always makes me mad in the morning where I log into my bank account, or I log into my credit card, or I log into Salesforce, and you get this two-factor authentication. They're sending me some text message with some number, and I got to plug that in every time, and it's really frustrating. So, Frank was talking to us about how we can create this frictionless experience. I had to rehearse that, frictionless experience, and where we have intelligence that says, let me look at your behavior. Let me look at that end user's behavior. Is it normal? And I can let you in if it is normal. But if there's things that I can detect automatically that maybe aren't normal, I'll either lock you out, or maybe I'll ask you to hum a few more bars on who you are. And so it becomes less frictionless, but secure. Okay, so that was really cool. If you want more information on that, please feel free to look at our recording from last week. Then we also taught the product and all of this that Frank went into and did some demos and whatnot is Mass 360. It's a product out of Israel that IBM purchased years ago and is integrated with the whole security portfolio. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell from last week. Exciting stuff that we did there. I would invite you, if you did not attend last week, to look at that link and look at the recording and contact us with any questions. Okay, I went through this last week. Sorry to bore you if you have already seen this, but just a little bit about Flagship Solutions Group. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but Flagship, we're headquartered out of Boca Raton, Florida. We've been around 11 years, almost 12 years. Towards the end of this year, we'll celebrate our 12th birthday. We are made up of a lot of seasoned people. That doesn't mean we're young here. We are very experienced. I myself worked for IBM for 18 years in the services division. And so a lot of our employees and personnel are very, very IBM centric. So we focus on managed services and cloud solutions. We don't really care where your infrastructure is. It could be on-prem, off-prem, in the cloud, somewhere in between. We're not partial to any of that. We feel we can manage your data centers and some of your implementations of your solutions no matter where they reside. So you can see there we focus on server consolidation, security, virtualization. We're very infrastructure focused. We're 24/7. We monitor and manage those data center environments. One of our biggest customers today is IBM. We provide what I call the white glove service around IBM cloud infrastructures. So very exciting. So we're working for IBM in support of their customers. Some of our service support options. This is just a continuum of what you might be thinking about in your environment. The task to the left, some customers want us to help them with certain tasks. Maybe it's a professional services contract where we come in hourly, you pay by the drink, and we can support you. Or we have some customers that say, you know what, I don't want to deal with any of this. I want you to take it, and I want you to work with the infrastructure, and you provide me that platform. So we can do all of that or anywhere in between and manage that. We also do, we do some middleware management, and that's some of the products we'll talk about today. But we also will, on occasion, depending upon a client's need, we will get into the application area and help manage that. We look at that on a case-by-case basis, depending upon what the need is and what our capabilities are to handle those needs. We will do that on occasion. With that, I'm going to turn it over. Frank, I had to show the picture again from last week, but with this time, we had to tell you who's who. So I'm on the right, Frank is on the left, but I did notice also back up here in the upper left, this guy, I don't know who this guy is, Frank. I don't know if you met him that evening, but I think this was in Vegas, but I swear that looks like Jeff Foxworthy.
I'm pretty sure that is Jeff Foxworthy. I think he's crashing our party.
So, all right, with that, Frank, I am going to turn it over to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let you take it away.
Oh, please do. One of my favorite pictures in the whole world of us, at least, Tom. Of us, at least, Tom. And thank you so much for that great recap, right? Because I think it sets the stage for our discussion today with regard to that piece of hashtag WFH, right? Work from home associated with it. New challenges come because of that, and last week we talked about hardening that endpoint, right? And two of the things that I'll bring up that there was a Reuters article. I wish I had put it in here, but I'm so lazy I didn't get it done today, right? A Reuters article that says they've seen that their investigator found a 50, I'm sure they just made that number up, I'm sure they rounded it up or down, % increase in cyber threats against corporations coming from their work from home workforce, right? And there's a couple examples they showed specifically associated with that. First and foremost, if they don't have a corporate owned device, right? So they're now putting Zoom and a VPN on it and stuff like that. What we might be missing is how they configured the firewall and who they said for connections associated with that. So that was one of them. So being able to do device configuration in a totally over-the-air remote manner, it's a big deal now, right? And the other one was how you do application updates. So you might have noticed there have been some application updates, not only to Zoom and things like that, but also to VPNs. And what happens if you miss a VPN update and you get exploited that way? And we'll investigate a little bit that today, the doom and gloom side of that, during hopefully a demo, use case demo that we've got to show off as part of that today. But hey, just like last week, if we're going along here and you've got any questions you want to be able to ask the panelists, Tom and myself, right? In the we prefer to use the Q&A box versus the chat box, right? Q&A we can capture, chat we typically can't, right? So let's go ahead and use that. And Tom is my presentation buddy. Oh, Tom and Trish are both my presentation buddies today. And if something comes up, they're like, hey, we should answer this in real time versus getting it someplace else, right? We'll do that. And obviously slides will be available, all that good stuff associated with that. So let's kick into this bad boy because we got a lot of ground to cover. So I might be going a little fast. If you might have to go text the replay and back it up. And as always, right? I'm available through Tom or any of the Flagship team members to talk about this in nauseating detail, especially when it comes time to the demo pieces and things like that. Okay, let's continue on. 152.91. blood pressure of security leaders, right? Because this is their list of stuff to do. And now we get to add work from home on top of that, right? Congratulations. These guys are going to need blood pressure, cardiac stuff, right? There's a, right? It's just a crazy piece associated with this, right? But here's what we're hearing from our customers, not just as it relates to the WFA, work from home and COVID-19 thing, but they really need to be able to understand how they can modernize their security frameworks and controls. We talked about it last week, right? Being able to do over-the-air enrollment and management of devices, not just mobile devices, but devices, right? And then frameworks, right? How do I then manage and track this newly remote workforce associated with it? With folks I don't have because I've got a skills shortage. Let me turn my laser pointer on because you know how I love my laser pointer, right? We got to most of our customers have got some skills shortage, right? That's really where another place where Flagship can come in and help with that, right? But maintain data privacy and regulatory compliance. We're going to talk a little bit about this. Well, we're going to talk a lot about this in today's demo section on what happens when these bad things get chained together and all of a sudden I've got a data breach because of I couldn't manage a firewall on a remote device, right? Addressing the, and we're going to talk about advanced persistent threats as well as cloud, right? Cloud, remote, the whole 9 yards, right? We're still hearing that from our customers on a daily basis, right? And so, and this whole organization's moving to cloud, this is going to be a big deal yet, right? 80% of enterprise workloads have yet to migrate to the cloud, right? I think a lot of folks used to think, right, mail and messaging was an enterprise workload, and now we've got a lot of that on IBM Verse and Microsoft 365 or Office 365 and Google and things like that, right? That's only 20%, right? And a lot more of this is going to go. I think our customers and Flagship are going to be a lot busier in helping folks migrate to that, right? But everybody's still concerned about security, as they should be with this thing, right? So our goal, right, is we want to make sure we can drive security into that business, right? Security that understands your business, right? Tom used the term frictionless, and I love that, right? We got an IBMer that we know uses that term all the time, but it's true, right? I don't want security to be the business prevention team for my organization or the business, the innovation planning prevention team associated with that, right? But I also need security that unites my defenses, right? I need to be able to have security that gives me a single pane of glass that says I can take a look at my endpoint management, my network security, my data security, and ID and access as a whole, not as individual silos associated with that. And I think we see this a lot in our environments today, where it's definitely not uniting our defenses. And I think those silos are getting to be pretty prominent out there, right? And as well as security that unlocks your innovation. Now, if you can get away with some of these things, right? Because work from home should be an innovative step, right? Remote users, the ability to be able to support that should be an innovative step that says I'm freeing mine, helping my customer, helping my my employee organization with work-life balance and all the other good stuff, right? In this era of finding the right people and keeping the right people, that's a big deal, right? So we want to make sure we got that, right? So IBM puts this into probably 3 major domain areas. First and foremost is this thing about strategy and risk. And I'm not going to spend too much time on strategy and risk because, quite frankly, that's Tom's place, right? That is Flagship Solutions' place, right? That's their job, is to really help you as an organization understand the different risks and the strategies to mitigate them and things like that. However, today I'm going to spend a lot of time over here in threat management, right? I want to be able to show how we can help you stop advanced threats within inside your organization, orchestrate a response, and do some master threat hunting associated with that. And we've got a kind of demo to be able to do that as well. And last week we did talk about digital trust, right? And that we talked about unified endpoint management, right? We've got a couple other things we could talk about in that area, but we're going to really focus over here on threat management today, right? Because this is where it comes down to, right? Your customers' organizations, your organization's customers looks kind of like this, right? You got identity and access, mobile, third-party folks, DevOps, threat intelligence, endpoints, multi-cloud, IoT, regular data and app security, right? And you're trying to work all of those things together, right? And we don't argue. It's a very complex piece that needs security in all those different areas. And how can I, remember we talked about, I need to be able to unite my security defenses, single pane of glass to be able to view those things with, right? So we really believe that from an IBM perspective, right, broadest and most complete security portfolio. Again, strategy and risk, right? Tom will talk about some of the strategy and planning and assessment and advisory services, but we're going to spend a lot of time over here today, specifically talking about QRadar, Resilient, and QRadar Advisor for Watson. And then last week, like we talked about, right, we talked about MOS 360, Unified Endpoint Management as part of this thing, right? And I love this slide because it talks about all the different types of out-of-the-box OTB type integrations that IBM security products have. And I love this integration. So I've got this great document I usually show up at, I did it on a customer presentation 2 days ago or yesterday. I forget, they're all running together because it's just this day today, right? Where I pulled out the IBM BDSM, which is the device support module guide for QRadar. And it's 1,254 pages long, a nauseating detail about how IBM's QRadar product works with all this other stuff, or 458 different integrations out of the box associated with it, right? So we're not saying you have to change, right? If you're using McAfee for something like this, or CrowdStrike, or Qualys, or RSA, or Tenable, or something like that for a specific reason inside your organization, that's wonderful. I want to help unite those single pane of glass, actionable intelligence associated with it, right? We think that's a huge piece of it. So we take this thing and we put it all under this thing called the Open Cybersecurity Alliance. So IBM, Cisco, Red Hat, Fortinet, you name it, right? We're all in this type of thing. So we're all trying to pull in the United Defense Platform. And the other thing I got to tell you what, let's not forget that IBM just recently completed the acquisition of Red Hat, the Red Hat organization, and some great and wonderful things have already come from that. I'm sure at one point, Tom, we're going to get together and talk to everybody on the call about this cloud pack for security. So they took this, so IBM's got this, QRadar, Resilient, and Advisor for Watson and Data Explorer piece, right? And they said, gosh, let's put it on a platform that can be deployed almost anywhere. So we'll take Red Hat's Kubernetes or OpenShift, and we'll take this IBM stuff and put it on this stuff. So now I can deploy it and use it anywhere I need to, right? Just different consumption model, but different deployment model, right? And the other one I love to talk about is Red Hat had previously completed an acquisition of a company called Ansible. And Ansible is automation, right? When we talk about some of the things to unify your security environment, automation is a big piece of this thing, right? This stuff happens in real time, right? So if this happens, do this, get this, and reset this, and bring it back, right? And I don't need any human interaction. I'm not saying create Skynet with the Ansible pieces, right? But put automation in where it makes sense. Right. So success starts with strategy. Tom, this is your slide right here, right? Your organization helps with the strategic as well as implementation, manpower, and all those other things, right? But this is where relying on a great partner to be able to help you with that really is in all of our best interest to be able to do that. What I want to do is start talking about how no hero does it alone with threat management, right? How are you uniting your defenses to protect what matters most with inside your environment, your crown jewels, your endpoints, your data, your users with that thing, right? So we think that one of the things that drives the unification of those defenses is QRadar, right? It is a total defensive package associated with that. So I always put it into this thing, right? It is one of those platforms that can take information, data lakes, whatever you want to call it, events and flows, right? From everything in your environment and put it into a single pane of glass. Provide correlation more importantly, normalization, right? And correlation. And then apply rules, right? When I say the term rules, I want you to think in your head, when Frank says rules, it is enforcement of my security policies. I might have a rule that says anytime I see a large file transfer over X amount of megabytes over X amount of time over a standard port, notify me of that. I want to know about something like that, right? Because that might be a violation of my security policy. That's what we're talking about, right? Or it might have a security policy that says, hey, you can't log in at this hospital and this hospital at the same time because they're 40 miles apart. So if you log in less than 20 minutes, from these 2 locations, I'm going to maybe cut your access because one of you is not who you're supposed to be, right? That type of a thing, right? That's what we're talking about when I say rules, sync security policy, right? So I've got QRadar out here doing it, ingesting, normalizing, and then running rules against this to say, is any of this stuff a violation of my security policy? And then telling us that it happened, right? So let's dive into a little bit, right? Because here's what we find a lot when we're talking about this. And in this period of remote users and remote workforces, this really is going to count, right? Because when they were inside your network, you were able to provide some defenses for them that they didn't have to think about, right? But now they're sitting on their home network where you're not quite sure how it's set up and defined and firewall rules and all this other good stuff, right? So this really is poignant in this work from home remote workforce that we're talking about right here, right? So we're struggle, right? Customers struggle with stealthy adversaries, right? So that is they're going to do low and slow, right? Maybe they get a ransomware attack that downloads a keyboard logger and just logs keystrokes, right? Then it finds that out, and then it says, well, I can use this keystroke or this thing to attack a vulnerability, and then I got some insider threats and some privacy risks associated with it. This is where we struggle a lot with being able to manage our users, right? But here's what we find out. We have enough data, but we don't have enough insights. We don't have enough analysis. We don't have enough actionable intelligence associated with it. So here's some crazy figures. I know that I annotated this somewhere about where I got these from. 44% of the alerts are not investigated. Ask Target about this one, right? 44% of the alerts are not even investigated. Why? Oh, that's just another false positive. We've seen this before. It's Moxnick, or it doesn't matter, right? One of those things. Sorry, I popped into German there for a second. My apologies, right? And of those that are investigated, 54% of the legitimate alerts are not remediated, right? So, yep, that's a violation of our security policy. We're not going to do anything. We don't have enough time. We don't know how to fix it. I'm not sure what the problem is there, right? And then 36% of us say, keeping up with alerts is a top concern, right? So they're still kind of, right? That should be 100% is keeping up with alerts is a top concern, right? So I need something that helps me manage this a little bit better, right? So there's 3 pillars of real effective threat detection I'm going to have as part of this, and we're talking about this, right? First and foremost, I have to be able to, if I'm going to be able to do good and proper and effective threat detection, I have to be able to see everything. And this is where QRadar leads the pack. Number 1, top of the heap is QRadar in this space because it has, remember those out-of-the-box integrations, 450 different things? Name 450 different IT products, trust are out there, right? So I want to be able to see everything and the capability to be able to create stuff that I haven't seen before, right? So if I have a, if something's out there that's not or new out in the system, I should be able to integrate that as well, right? We've got a path to be able to do that, right? See everything, put it in one place and run common sets of rules, my security policies against them. And I want to be able to automate some of the intelligence associated with that. So when something like that happens and it's a magnitude 7, a scale of 1 to 10, right? A magnitude 7 or above offense, violation of my security policy, automatically go out and gather additional information about the whatever the observables were, IP addresses or file hash for the malware or command and control servers or whatever it is, right? Get that stuff for me. So when it comes time to remediating it, I've already got it there, right? It's already done for me associated with that, right? So here's how we think QRadar fits into that category, right? Complete visibility, endpoints, network, data, users, threat, configuration, vulnerabilities, application, and cloud platforms. I can feed all of that stuff into QRadar, and I can run my rules against that says, hey, nope, this is not a violation of my security policy. Bam, that is a violation of my security policy. And prioritize it. Says, oh, that's a violation of my security policy because somebody's over here tickling on my my unsecured Wi-Fi for guest network, right? Well, okay, that's some guy just out there poking around, right? Versus I've got a threat where somebody is doing a database scan on my customer PCI data environment, right? Higher threat than the other one is, right? Prioritize them. automate those investigations, get information, bring it back, have it to me ready to go. And not just in QRadar, right? We're going to show how that happens in Resilient as well. Well, we're going to try and show how it happens in Resilient as well, right? But automate those pieces, which then lets me do this very proactive hunting, right? Finding out where my risks and my vulnerabilities and which threats I should be paying attention to are the biggest piece of this thing, right? And then the other thing, right? We talked about the being able to see everything, but let's have some open integrations associated with that, right? An open platform with that. So IBM has created, as part of its alliance, the Cybersecurity Alliance, has created this thing called the IBM Security App Exchange. And the whole goal of the App Exchange is to be able to have a place where IBM and all the IBM partners, right? Carbon Black, Cisco, Palo Alto, Wonder, I mean, you name it, right? There's like 259 different integrations for QRadar right now as part of this thing. So it helps with the see everything piece. Here's just an example of the see everything piece. It also helps us automate some of the intelligence. And one of the things we can show is that user behavior analytics piece, right? Automate some of the intelligence. But, well, we think this user may have been a compromised user because of what happened here, right? And then be proactive about being able to track them down. We're going to talk about Resilient, but I can tie this into ServiceNow or Squirrel or different things associated with it as well. Check the Q&A over here. Nope, no question. It's over here on this screen. That's why I had to look over there like an old man, right? So, so here's a thing where the does it make sense, right? Does it work for us, right? What's the impact associated with this? So this is the total economic impact of QRadar security intelligence by Forrester Research back in May of 2018. I'm sure the numbers are still good, right? The average time to respond to an incident before this company put QRadar in was 4 hours, right? So if they decided to act on an incident, they were 4 hours to be able to fix it, right? After using QRadar, they've cut that down to about an hour, right? So because they got information there, they know what they're looking at, they can make it happen, right? So here, QRadar by the numbers, 75% improvement in threat detection and speed to detect. And I love this number, right? Because if you're using the Verizon breach report, and CrowdStrike has got a new one out that talks about the average time of infection, right? When you've got a piece of malware or infected by whatever it is, to detection, not fix, to detection. 3 years ago was in 160-day range. 160-day range. Are you kidding me? Right? Where now the average is down to 100, right? 103 or under 100, right? It's right at that period, right? Still, it's kind of unacceptable, right? We kind of show how QRadar customers see this way earlier, like in minutes, right? To be able to do that. Improved incident response times, right? So they were able to respond back to the incidents faster. And then the efficiency in the operations, in investigations, and compliance reporting. Because this was a utility company, they had to respond as part of compliance reporting. So QRadar keeps a lot of this stuff. We're not going to talk a lot about compliance reporting as part of today's discussion, but it was kind of a big deal for them, right? Because that's just a sinkhole of cost, time, and money right there, right? And then I would be remiss if I didn't tell you this one little slide that talks about how QRadar can be deployed out there, right? So we want to be able to help solve the security channels, right? Challenges, right? Detect advanced threats, secure the cloud, protect data, prioritize, and improve compliance, right? And being proactive and automatic and see everything, right? But there's deployment models associated with this as well. And I think this is important, especially if you're in this whole work from home, I got a whole bunch more remote users and I don't have a way to do this, is we can deploy this, right? Tom and his team can deploy this on-prem as hardware, physical appliances, software, you provide the appliances, we'll put software on it, or virtual machines. You've got a VMware environment, we can put it in there, right? We can put that all on-prem, lock it in, have it ready to go. Or you can deploy it as a service. So you can buy a QRadar on cloud, all the same capabilities, except for one, right, which is the administration role, SaaS admin versus full-on administrator, right? You can deploy it as a service, right? So you take DevOps out of it and you put it up there in the cloud, or you can consume it as a managed service. I think Tom and his team have a managed service for QRadar as well. So you get to decide where you want it. You can deploy this on cloud. So you can go to AWS, Azure, Google Cloud and say, hey, I want to deploy an image of QRadar in your environment, right? And I want it to be this fast with this much stuff, boom, as well as hybrid. And this is the one I love. as a solutions architect, I get to help design a lot of these stuff. And I got to tell you, I have been doing it for 7 years, and 7, 8, a long time. All right. And I have yet to find a customer environment that I haven't been able to make a combination of this stuff work for them. And usually it comes with healthcare, finance, and folks that have a large need around compliance and reporting, right? Those folks need, I need to have my data stay here, and it must stay here, and it only here stuff, right? So, but I want to make sure you understood how you can deploy all of this stuff out in your environment as well. Right, so let's continue on, because I've got a little example today that we're going to walk through associated with this. And so in this, I got my company, I got the bad guys over here, and the internet doing this, and my company associated with this. All right, and so I've had this attack running in my environment. Let's see. I've had this attack running inside of my QRadar demo environment for the last, let's say I started this about an hour and a half ago. And I just started it because I wanted to be able to create the offenses we're going to talk about. And the offenses we're going to talk about today is number 80, right? Because it's all of these things together happened as part of this thing. And so we're going to take a look at offense number 80 today. And offense 80 is an interesting offense, right? It really talks about, and it ties into our, I'm just going to build this out a little bit, right? It talks about our environment where I've got users working from home now, right? So this user is now no longer on my corporate network. It's sitting over there in a work from home environment. And so I'm going to use some QRadar capabilities, right? And I've got this thing called QRadar Network Intelligence, right? So I'm going to gather events, right? Events, Frank Welder logged in, Frank Welder logged in, Frank Welder failed his login, and failed his login. Oh, Frank Welder failed his login 3 times in 2 minutes, right? One of those things, right? I'm going to use QRadar to do that, right? But then I'm going to have QNI, QRadar Network Insights. So regular flows capture information in the first 64 bits of a packet up to layer 3 of the OSI model, right? Well, that helps us a little bit, right? But QNI gets us up to layer 7 of the OSI model. What does that mean for us? At layer 7 of the OSI model, I get username and application, as well as the full packet being captured for being viewed. I may not store all of it. I may only store as much as I want as configurable, but I'm going to inspect the entire packet for malware or different things associated with it, right? So now I get a lot more information about not only how, who and what's happening on my network, but how it's communicating and working back and forth, right? And in this particular environment, I'm going to have a bad guy send, and the attacker is going to send a phishing email to the company's mail server, right? And so in this particular case, I'm using Office 365, in which, right, you don't have to VPN, you don't have to be VPN to do Office 365, right? It's just username and password associated with that, and you can get access to it. So now I have my user working from home associated with this, right? Well, guess what? When that happened, QRadar Network Insights was still monitoring your Office 365 environment and said, hold it. This is a phishing attack, and QRadar automatically offends it. So even before it gets to the user, it said bad things happen here, right? Now, many organizations already have like Blue Code or something like that to be able to capture those pieces of information and notify as well. But I'm not saying that that's an additional add-on, and some companies don't buy that, right? So in this case, QRadar is going to catch that and throw an offense, and it could just stop the mail right there, right? But let's just say it just keeps going, right? User downloads the mail from the mail server, right? And the user opens a document, right? Because the document said, hey, COVID-19 daily update from Vice President of Human Resources. You're like, well, that sounds important. I should open that. And it says to get the latest information, click here. And of course, it came from it was spoofed from our corporate vice president of human relations about the COVID-19 thing, right? And I clicked that link, and it downloads a little piece of malware, right? And installs itself. And Sysmon then says, hey, I got a new process that got created over here, and I'm going to report that out. So remember, if I've got MOS 360, a unified endpoint manager running on this environment, it'll report back into QRadar and said, hey, well, it'll report back to MOS 360 that happened. And I've got MOS 360 tied into QRadar. And so QRadar saw that and it said, right? So it's gonna note that process creation and create an offense associated with that, right? And let's say, right, this is happening in real time, right? Well, that malware starts downloading additional tools, right? So that first thing was to create a sysmon and then stop all logging and stuff like that, right? And then it's going to download some additional tools, right? Maybe a keylogger, right? So I'm going to be able to track all the the keyboard actions on that machine. So whenever this user, maybe they're a super admin for the customer database or the PCI server, right? I can track that. But I'm also going to download while I'm here, right? Network scanning tools and database scanning tools, right? So I can find a little more information about what's going on, right? Because since you're connected on VPN and you've got some stuff connected, right? I'm going to jump on that thing as well and get a view for what that looks like. Oh, great, right? This is getting better by the minute, right? And then these tools crack the user credentials. And again, QRadar already saw this and just keeps extending this offense with new observation details, right? So I'm keeping track. I got history working right here. Now, at any point along this way, I could have told QRadar via Ansible or via Resilient to knock you off the network, right? Put you in isolation, right? But I want to be able to present worst case scenario on how this thing looks, right? I'm Captain Doom and Gloom today. Sorry about that, folks, right? But it makes for a great story too, right? All right, so now this infected workstation via the VPN starts spying on the rest of the infrastructure as well, right? So imagine this, right? Because remember, one of the things we talked about is maybe your VPN had a new patch to be able to help with all the work from home stuff, right? And because you were a remote user, you might not have figured out a way to force a VPN patch update. So now it got exploited that way, right? So as it starts bopping along, it starts doing network scans and database scans, right? QRadar sees this and says, oh, you know what? Q and I looked at that and I said, I've got a workstation out here spying on us, right? So I'm going to just extend that. I'm just going to put some more stuff in this, right? I could have told QRadar to send via REST API a new firewall rule to knock that guy off the network, right? But I didn't. Right, and then all of a sudden the infected workstation successfully logs in, because remember, it had a keystroke logger, right? Logged into the PCI data using that user's credentials. Here's where it turns from annoying into a data breach, because now the infected workstation downloads data from that server, right? So remember, this workstation is no longer inside your environment, but it has access because of the PCI, so downloads it via the VPN, right? Because it looks like it's supposed to, right? That activity is monitored by Q and I, right? So we see all of that pieces associated with it. And here it comes. Now that infected workstation starts exfiltrating that PCI data using a non-standard protocol, right? You would think HTTP or FTP, right? But they're going to use DNS. All of a sudden, we see these huge DNS packets with all of this PCI data being exfiltrated out of your organization, right? What happens next usually? If you didn't find it, hello, this is the FBI. We found a whole bunch of your corporate information, PCI data on the network flowing by. You might want to take a look at that, right? Did you imagine getting that call, right? That knock on the door? And I think with COVID-19, maybe they're doing virtual visits as well, right? But holy crap, that's a heck of a day. But this is the reality that we're facing now with our work from home pieces, right? This really could happen. So being able to monitor, watch, and see everything is a big deal, right? So now I'm going to make sure that this endpoint, this workstation, is unified endpoint management, connecting to the MOS 360 server in the sky, and the MOS 360 server is already setting that information right into QRadar, right? I've got that, right? I've got what that looks like. So let's take a look at what this might look like in QRadar, right? So I've got this thing called a use case manager, right? I just want to dispel all the myths and rumors associated with this, right? This is just how this thing looks. And of course, I clicked the wrong button because I wanted actually use cases, not use case manager. So what we were talking about here is a set of use cases that I have access to, and this one's running, and this is called use case number 180. And so use case 180 does this. It feeds this information into the QRadar or in the environment, and these are the commands it does to do it. And it takes it's 1600 seconds. So what is that? 18 minutes to be able to run. So we're good to go, right? This talks about how I'm able to feed all that information in, right, from the different pieces and the different things associated with that, right? And so this is my attack associated with that. And then we just walk through all the attack pieces associated with that. So I just want to let you know how we did that so we can show off, right, what it looked like with that. So now let's see what the action or what the evidence of that looks like, right? So the evidence is here in number 80, right? So let's open offense number 80. Remember, an offense is a violation of your security rules, right? A violation of your security rules. All right, so I'm trying to get this thing open. Here it is, right? And so in this particular case, when QRadar saw all these things happening, right? The malware, the getting downloaded, the Sysmon thing getting created, all that stuff happening, it didn't create an individual offense for that. What it did, and this is what the competitors would put every one of these as an individual offense, right? And you'd be like, okay, well, what ties all these things together? Because they are all tied together, right? They're correlated as part of something, either by time or user or network path and traffic and things like that as well, right? So what's happening already, right? And so it said, you know what? I've got something containing a data warehouse, right? Hold it. Local database scanner, outbound transfer, high rate of transfer, local data. Oh my goodness, right? So I can see that I've got 13 events and 788 flows in 7 different categories that started from this source IP on my network to this IP in, where's this from? Thailand, right? So I'm sending packets of information to Thailand associated with this, right? Of course this is a problem, right? And now I can investigate, right? So now QRadar have said, I am notifying you this is a violation of our security policies. And here is all the information that I have about this. And I'll keep updating it as more information comes in, right? So I can take a look at these 13 events. And remember, events are Frank Welder logged in, logged out, all that other good stuff, right? So I can take a look at these 13 events and say, come on, system, right? Be happy here, right? It's working hard today. My demo system, right? They never have enough power, right? I think we should ask for more money for bigger, powerful demo systems, right? And it's going to put all of these events, right? So I'm going to have all of the event information that made up this offense right at my fingertips. And I can look at it show it to me about high-level category, low-level category, right? I can view it all different ways, right? So these are the events that make this particular offense up, right? And it said, oh, I found here's potential data exfiltration using large DNS packets. I can have a scan followed by successful login. So I scanned and then I logged in. An account was successfully logged on. Here's the large outbound transfer. And then, right, so it just kept continuing itself, right? And I can view this, right, in several different ways associated with that, right? And I'm going to close that one down, right? So I'm done a little threat hunting. I'm like, yep, this really is the real deal here, right? And then I can also look at it in by the number of flows. Think of flows as the conversations, right? The network conversation, the puts and gets, and the stuff like that happen as part of a network, right? I should have done this earlier. So now I can't be the only one that told Tom that he didn't put his screen on full size. All right, and here's an example of the flows associated with that, right? Back and forth associated with that, and brings that information forward. It's just taking longer than I usually expect it to be able to pull that up. Like, please wait, I'm glad you asked me politely to wait, right? But again, this will show that conversation, where a packet started from and where it ended up, as well as what was in the packet, right? So I can take a look at these particular pieces of information, right? These 788 pieces of flow information, and I can start looking at what was included as part of that packet, right? Now, because I was just feeding dummy data into this thing. I don't have any big, large packets to show off associated with that, right? But if I did, I could easily just go into here and click on this and start looking at that individual packet, and and I could look at what was captured associated with it, and I could use that later on maybe to reconstruct the entire session that happened, to be able to list out what was done to that environment, right? And if you look at all this as being on port 53, right? So I've got to the point where I've investigated this, and I'm like, you know what? This really is a problem, right? So I'm going to do something. I need to start remediating this. I need to start fixing this. So I'm going to click a little button here and say, I want to send it to Resilient. So Resilient is IBM's incident response platform. I had some slides for it, but I think I'm going to go in lieu of slides. I'm going to just talk about it instead, right? Is IBM's incident response platform available, again, on-premise or on cloud as a SaaS offering with this thing. And what it does, it says, give me all of this information, right? All of these events and flow and information, and I will put together a team to help manage the remediation of this. So I'm going to click the Send to Resilient button, and I've got an incident file here just called triage, right? Because I'm not sure what it is, right? But it's just going to be triage, and I'm going to click OK. And when I click OK, of course it did. Timed out. That's just terrible, because it should have worked this way. I apologize. It should have worked this way, where it went in and created a new incident for me. I'm going to try it just one more time because I'm a glutton for punishment. Instead of triage, I'm just going to say default template. Oh, there it is. So I'd like the default template today, right? So automatically, it took all of the events and all of the flows and all of that information and transferred it into Resilient. Now, anytime that I update information that should be updated in QRadar and I update it in Resilient, it'll send it back to QRadar, right? Because my SOC guys, my Security Operations Center folks versus my remediation specialist, right? They may want to keep that up to date as well. So I have bi-directional transfer of information between these two platforms to be able to support information sharing, right? Because now I've got this, hey, this QRadar Incident 180, potential data exfiltration using large packets. So I've got all the information right in front of me that I want to be able to do, right? And now I need to assign some tasks associated with this. Well, remember, I just used the default template, which was just started off as detect and analyze. Well, one of the things that IBM continues to mention about the Resilient platform is its dynamic playbooks, right? You find more information and you can change the playbooks associated with this on how you're supposed to be able to do this, right? So I've got an incident in here, not incident 80, but I've got incident 9, which was another exploit with Web VPN. And I'm going to click this one. I want you to be able to take a look at what happens with what I can do with the tasks associated with it. So as part of my dynamic playbook, I now have engage tasks, right? Initial triage, interview the individuals, determine if an appropriate internal involvement was, right? Then I get detect and analyze phase associated with this. Right, and here I'm going to analyze what happened, who did what, gather up additional information that needs to be gathered up. Then I can do my respond piece, right? How I respond back associated with this. And because this was a data breach, right, I had to do some reporting to the attorneys generals and different things like that. And this section helps me do that type of reporting back to the attorneys generals. Now, I promised that I would keep us all on time today, and I really wanted to show off this. I know this was a whirlwind type demo use case that we showed off associated with this. All right, and I promise, as part of any other engagement with Flagship, that we want to go into some greater detail associated with this. We absolutely can. But I really wanted to be able to point out today how important it is to be able to, what's the word, where am I going to go with this thing? How important it is to be able to have a platform and have a system that follows these 3 fundamental pillars for security, right? And when we start talking about that, losing the voice there. the three fundamental pillars there is I'm going to use a platform that lets me see everything, run rules against my security policy to see if it's been violated in real time in that environment. I want to be able to automate some of the intelligence, and I want to be able to send it out into an incident response platform to be very proactive in my response. With that, Tom, I think I'm done. I'm going to hand it back over to you and let you do your thing with that.
All right, Frank, thank you very much. Good detail, good presentation. And I like that chart too. See everything, automate intelligence, become proactive. If any of you out there have shortfalls in doing any of those three things, please contact us, and we can help you get there. Okay, so we're going to jump back to any questions that you have out there. Please feel free to use the Q&A. We haven't seen any come in yet, so I think we're good there. A couple more things. I mentioned this on last week's call. Register for a security risk assessment. Free assessment by us, very complimentary, and we can go over some of all the things that you see here on the screen. You can register today by clicking that hot link on this presentation that we are going to be sending out to each of you to have in your possession. So just click on that link and you can register for this security risk assessment, as well as a no-charge 90-day access. So this is an IBM offering that they're offering right now. Mass 360, you can try it for 90 days. We can help you install it and use it, answer any questions that you may have during that 90 days. Flagship can help with that, as well as IBM Cloud Identity. If you're ready to sign up for those, just contact me. My email address is right there at the bottom of the screen. And then lastly, as a thank you, for those of you that have attended part 1 and part 2 of our security series, you are already entitled to join us at an event this fall. Miami Marlins, of course, if they do play this year. If not, we'll make arrangements. If that's your burning desire, we'll make arrangements and hope that there will be some games being played next year. Atlanta United, I know the season's already started, but you know, that's not available just yet. But we do hope and pray that when NFL starts off in August, we will be hosting our customers at the game. So, you know, once the game schedule are finalized, you'll have the option to choose between those. We have a field level suite there in Mercedes-Benz Stadium where we can view the Atlanta United as well as the Atlanta Falcons. If you didn't attend part 1, and you can still catch up on part 1. This is the hot link here to replay part 1. You can view our presentation with this other hot link, and you can review the Mass 360 presentation that we did on the last call. The presentation's there. Also, if you didn't attend part 1 and you attended that part 2, and you still want to go to one of those exciting games, if you participate in one of our complimentary risk assessments, you are entitled. At least the first 3 of you are entitled to attend one of those games if we participate in a security risk assessment with you and your team. So double value there. With that, connect with us. Again, my name's Tom Mitchell. Flagship Solutions Group. There's my email ID. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn right there. And if you have any other questions, do we have any questions on the Q&A? It doesn't appear we do. No. So we will conclude this, and I appreciate everybody attending. Stay tuned for our next series that will be coming out in the next few weeks. Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.